Good evening. I call to order the July meeting of the Florence City Planning Commission. Always good to see folks out there in the audience, and on behalf of the city staff and the commissioners tonight, we appreciate you being here. The first item on the agenda is the invocation, and I'm going to ask Mr. Moses if he would please do that for us.
Okay. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we want to thank you just for blessing us one more time. Just to be the number, just to be here in the presence of the living. Lord, we want to thank you for the city of Florence for allowing us to come here to do the business for the city and for the community as a whole. Lord, we want to thank you for everything that you do for us. These are the blessings in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Moses. All right. We're going to approve the minutes from last month. The commission received the packages. They've had a chance to go through. Are there any corrections, improvements, changes to the minutes? Aha. I have caught my commissioners. There are several mistakes.
I see some mistakes.
Shameful. Okay, Ms. Elaine, invocation starting there. You got Mr. Chairman Howard, and then the approval of minutes. Mr. Howard is, and that's approving the April 12th minutes.
This was a trick.
No, that is correct. There was no meeting in May. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Oh,
Point count. That's right. That's
Elaine with the zinger.
yeah.
Oh, you're right. I forgot to change Howard to Hill. So.
Oh, well, I thought I had you guys. All right. I apologize for the levity there. We'll get back to serious business. All right. If there are no changes, I'll call for a motion on the approval of the minutes.
Motion approved.
I have a motion. I have a second. I have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the ayes have it. Thank you. All right. The first item that involves a public hearing is PC 2022-24. This is a request to rezone from PDD to AC. Ms. Elaine, Chair recognizes staff.
Good afternoon. Yes, this is a request which may look familiar to you. It is the parcel located along Second Loop Road that is vacant now, and the front portion, front 2/3 of it are zoned activity center, and the rear of it is zoned planned development district, which is left over from what we found actually is a 1989 planned development ordinance, and we have no development standards attached to that. So the owner's only option was to either rezone it so that the whole parcel is the activity center, or to amend the planned development, the PDD ordinance. And since we don't really have that PDD, there's nothing to amend. We'd basically be starting from scratch as well with that. So that is the purpose for rezoning to the activity center, which is the same zoning designation that the majority of properties along Second Loop Road are zoned. So that's the reason for the rezoning request. The owner has absolutely no plans for any type of development on this parcel at the time. She just wants to clean up the zoning in case something comes along or if she decides to do something. And any development that would be done on there would have to be done to the Unified Development Code standards, which would include buffering against the residential areas, landscaping, everything that anybody else would be required to adhere to. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. This site came up before this commission 3-4 months ago for an apartment type of development. Is that going away?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Dudley?
And this request differs because originally it was the developer, because they had signed them as an agent to act on behalf of the property, so the agent had made the request. request, and this time it's the actual property owner making the request. But it's a similar zoning request to zone the entirety of the property activity center.
And it matches the usage on both sides of this property, if I'm correct.
That's correct. There would also be a remnant of the PDD left on the adjacent property to the north as well. That property owner has not come forward to rezone that portion of it, but it does, there is a fair amount of activity center along the second loop corridor there. It does match the adjacent property zone along the corridor there.
Dr. Lawhorn?
But my question is, the reason this was left over is that you have houses around this and residential around this. So I think the original intent was that to protect those, in the PDD was to protect those residential. So now we're going to forego all that and just do AC all the way back?
We have no record of what the intent of that PDD was, and I think that's part of what the commission here is charged with, to figure out the best use for that property. It is one parcel that is currently split zoned. The options are moving forward, one, to rezone this portion of the property because as it exists, it's unusable because there are no development standards for this PDD that have been identified. The other option, as with any PDD, is to do a plan development amendment. This is a very old PDD. It would not meet current day requirements of a PDD, but it is nonetheless an old existing PDD. So,
But if you look along the corridor of that, let's be fair, okay? Look along the corridor of this. All the houses border this property, and none of the ACs go this deep if you look at the adjacent properties. So, we have to think about the people that are around this and the residential, and I think the original intent of the PDD was to protect those houses. I had one person call me that lives off of Valparaiso at the corner that was just inquiring about what's going to come close to the back of those houses. I don't know anybody that on Bellevue that has seen this or got close to it, but it would, if you look at the whole corridor there, this would actually allow this to go much further back than anything else on this piece, on the whole stretch. Am I seeing that wrong?
No, it's clear.
Jerry, would you remind me what the request was because we had a fair amount of pushback, as I recall. But what the request was, and then what we ended up, what our decision was, I can't recall.
Sure. The original request came from the developer who was proposing an apartment complex to go there. At the time, it did receive approval from the Planning Commission to be rezoned from Activity Center. But of course, Activity Center opens it up to multiple uses. The front portion is already Activity Center, but that would open up the whole parcel to that use. And as part of that multifamily development, we, as the planning staff, were requiring it all to be zoned as one continuum across the property. It did, when it moved on to Planning Commission, there was some, I guess, general objection to it, and there was some speaking at planning or at city council regarding the issue, and it ultimately ended with the applicant, who was the developer at that time, withdrawing the application.
There was a request for a zoning change,
That's correct.
which is exactly what this request is.
It's exactly the same, except for the person making the request. Originally, it was the developer making the request, and now it is the actual property.
I'm not sure I see the distinction between who's making the request.
Right.
Well, my intent was that they're just making there's nothing that's supposedly going there now. They just want to change the zoning. I can assure you that whoever the developer was before will revisit this site when it's rezoned.
Absolutely. I tend to agree with you. I don't know why that would matter.
Our number one task is to protect the residents and still fairly treat, the investor or commercial holder that fronts on Second Loop. There is an issue here, and Doctor, you brought it up in regards to how do we buffer the residents that are in the back there. Now, when you were explaining to Mr. Howard here, you said that the planning commission turned it down. It was actually the city council, if I recall correctly.
That's right.
And we approved it, which I'm kind of asking myself why we did.
I think the pushback came in city council. After it went through here, people found out about it, and then the push was then on from city council.
But don't we normally try to, if you could pull the map back up, yeah, the green area, maybe that's excessive. That maybe we could make more AC a little bit further back, but you mentioned amending the PDD.
That is correct. That is an option whereby they would, I mean, it's the PDD, and if there are any changes made, then it has to come back through this public hearing process and back to the city council.
Now, the piece to the left of the subject property is Logan Plaza. The PDD behind Logan Plaza has been commercial. It has been, right now it's a daycare center.
That's correct.
But we have had, we represent the Logans, they have had commercial uses back there. So there's a chance that PDD, even though we don't know, had an allowance for some type of commercial use, maybe light office, professional office or light usage. But we will never know that because we
Well,
can't.
how are they using a commercial if it's not zoned? How are they using it as a daycare currently?
It's been established. I mean, it's been there for, yeah.
So,
It's an existing non-conforming.
right, so existing non-conforming.
Yeah.
So you can't hang your hat off.
Right,
existing
and I'm not.
non-conforming.
I want to protect the people on
Right.
in the back and on the sides.
And then the rest of the property on Second Loop is AC, am I right? The frontage,
I think
Second Loop?
how many feet did you say?
The rest of that property on Second Loop is AC, am I right?
But in the blue,
That's
yes.
correct.
All the rest of it is blue, and the piece that he wants to, it's the same thing right beside it, am I right? It's
Yeah,
AC.
Logan Plaza is to the left of it, and
Right,
there's
that's
a,
AC,
and there's a
both sides.
doctor's, a heart doctor on the right side.
But both sides are AC, am I
Right.
right? And he just want to do the same thing with the person will do the same thing with the property on both sides. And he's in the middle, he wants to zone AC.
They just want to zone all the way back next up to
You
the
see,
houses.
you see the green area, Mr. Moses, below the AC? That's what he's now wanting to change to AC, and we have that's PDD, the green, and we're worried about the yellow. Those are single-family homes.
Okay, the green on the left side of that.
Yes, sir. That's a daycare.
What's that?
It's a daycare.
Yeah, this parcel here
Uh-huh.
is a built daycare,
Okay.
and the other portion is vacant.
And so, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm still trying to figure it out if it's already there. In other words, the back part of that property never been zoned. That's what you're trying to say?
No, it is. It's PDD though, and they're trying to convert the PDD to all.
That's
AC.
the one that came into his, I remember, I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
That's right. And
Yeah.
planned developments there's an era in the 80s, 70s, and 80s where a lot of PDDs were established and not a lot of guidelines were given with them. It was kind of
I
a
remember.
free zoning, if you could say, where people established their rules and their guidelines for development. And in some areas they were abused because they established a free-form kind of, a free-for-all zoning district. But as time went on, this got reined in, and and I don't know that that's what's happened here. There may have very well been some guidelines associated with it, but they were not written into the ordinance at that time. And as time went on, we established code in our ordinance that required them to set forth those guidelines for usage for development standards. A lot of times they just want to get locked into the current zoning. With the Grove, for instance, they got locked into our old zoning code for most of their guidelines. And so when we review development in the Grove, we revert back to the old zoning code to review that. So because they felt comfortable with that and they were uncertain of the future in some cases. So this is one of those old ones that just doesn't have guidelines associated with it. Magnolia Mall is a good example of one that for years we didn't have very good guidance at all. So when even signage wanted to go in there, we had very little guidance on what to do there. So we asked them to come back and amend their PDD to establish those guidelines, and they did several years ago.
Ms. Murray, you have a question?
Is this another example of spot zoning?
It would not be, as it exists. It's not. It's large enough acreage, but if it was rezoned to activity center, it would be comparable to what's adjacent to it, so it would not be spot zoning.
But on this corridor, you'd be doubling the AC zoning. That's just, I don't think that's fair to the residents.
But don't you have, you say you're worried about the yellow part, am I right?
Yes.
Don't he, if he developed that, wouldn't he have some kind of buffer code up there?
There would, I would assume there would be a required buffer.
There would be a 25-foot buffer required, vegetative buffer between any development on that parcel and the single-family residential, essentially the neighborhood conservation district.
But AC would open up to far more development than even the PDD. They'd have to come up before us, and the community would have input, correct?
But potentially, if the PDD were amended, they would have to come back with some specific recommendations.
And I think that's why that green strip is there, to be honest with you. So you don't have apartments 20 foot from those houses.
Why did city council turn this down?
It was withdrawn.
Oh, it was withdrawn. They didn't turn
Withdrawn.
it
The
down.
applicant withdrew. Yes.
But the resistance was,
But there was strong resistance there. Probably wasn't going to pass.
I think the developer was against some timelines as well.
Yeah. Well, I remember there being some pushback here as well, honestly.
It was deferred at city council for a couple of months.
Uh-huh.
Well, either way, we're still going to have a public hearing, and then we can make a recommendation. So,
Good point.
let me get my phone off.
We'll do that.
All right. Any further quick questions of staff, and then we'll go to public hearing. All right. This is the portion where we'll allow anyone in the audience, if you are for or against this, to come and speak. And when you do, I ask you to come to the podium and give us your name. Thank you. Yes. And let us know if you're for or against.
Okay, I'm Mary Jane Weir. I'm against it. And I also spoke at the city council meeting. We haven't got a big following. I think the first time it was approved, nobody even knew about it. So there was like nobody even at the planning committee before. And even at the city council meeting, I know the properties that abut in the back don't know about it. We live across the street. So between the Hampton Park and Tarleton West is where I live, we've got like 100 homes that will be affected. And even with the last proposal it was going to affect our neighborhood across the street greatly because you can put a larger structure in on a larger piece of property. The depth of it concerns us, pushing it back further against those houses. And all you're going to allow for is a larger development to go there, a larger commercial development, and it is going to affect everybody there. It was bought with both zonings on there. They knew it. I realize they want the rezoning so they can get a better profit off the sale of the land. It makes it more marketable. But when you're affecting that many citizens, we're just appalled by something like that. With the last proposal, they were going to put apartment complexes right abutting on Second Loop Road, and I know that's off the table now, but it can definitely come back. And it was going to look like 2 basketball courts on Second Loop Road, throwing a bunch of sound into our neighborhood. And Second Loop is the busiest road in there. There's 13 access points within that whole frontage there, and you're going to add another one. it's just an extremely crowded area. And if you make it a larger property, there's going to be more cars, there's going to be more everything, more traffic. It affect our neighborhood and the neighborhood behind them. I think all those houses bought knowing it wasn't going to be commercial. You know, they're budding back there, and those houses are selling fast. Those houses are on the market for a month, and they're sold. All brand new ones they built back there. They could easily build some more houses in that area, and it will just add to what's already there. But we're definitely against it, and I think there is a big following for it. We got a lot of people on vacation because we just found out about this last Friday, and there's no signs on Second Loop. There's no nothing. But and originally we thought that was part of the Hampton Park has covenants, and we thought that this piece was covered by that. But then there were some initially the emails were from the planning that it was, but I guess now they're saying it wasn't. And Hampton Park is, their covenants do say that it's only residential. You can't have any commercial. But if that piece isn't covered, then there aren't any restrictive covenants. It's just people bought property there thinking it was just going to be like a small office complex. I mean, and that's what that's the size for it. But if you make it bigger, who knows what you can bring in. And that's what we're worried about.
Do you think that neighborhood would be upset with a light medical office park like on Heritage, further down? Like if you had...
I mean, there's a brand new dental complex that went. It's similar to that. It doesn't need that depth.
Yeah,
It can
I'm
leave
just
that.
saying what would be a good use for that PDD, the area that they're trying to change
They
back.
could put
to.
homes there. There's homes, if you looked at the map, there's homes all around that whole area. I mean, it's that whole, the yellow area is brand new homes that they just built.
My only concern is those homes that you build in there will now be backed up to AC, which is commercial, which is what this owner is trying to do, is get it changed to AC in the back, which would put commercial closer to the homes. I'm just trying to think, out of fairness to the property owner, what would be a fair use that would...
Lesser commercial, what you get?
Yeah.
More of a, I guess, a smaller office complex instead of just stacked in, apartments is what you call it.
Yeah, I mean, but if you get it rezoned, I mean, who's to say that somebody's going to come back the next whatever? Now, I think the money is out for this year, but who is to say that anybody else can't build an apartment complex there? And it would be allowed. And if it's in a smaller portion, there really is not quite enough land for it. You could squish something in there, but there just isn't enough land for that, I don't think.
Could you spell your last name for me?
WEIR.
I got it right.
No D.
Any questions from Ms. Weir? Thank you very much for coming forward. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak for or against this request?
And Chairman, I would like to say that we did receive an email from
Okay.
a resident, which is across the street as well, lives on DeBerry. Mr. Dudley Harrington did email us, and he expressed many of the same concerns that Ms. Weir did. He was concerned about its impact on his neighborhood. He was concerned about its impact on the residents of Gardner Road, the residents behind it, and he also brought up the issue with the restrictive covenants of Hampton Park. But I did let him know this was not part of Hampton Park. It was a separate parcel, and those restrictive covenants would not apply.
So he lives across Second Loop on the opposite side.
That's correct.
Okay. So the density with apartments, I can see a lot of traffic issues. If there was a low density use, the owner's got to be able to use that property for something.
Well, the PDD would allow him to come back before this commission.
Right.
I'm 100% for that, by the way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that'll probably get into our recommendations after we get through with the hearing. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this and call for a motion. Here we are.
Seems to me that the way to attack this is through the PDD, and we've all sort of butted up against that for the last 20 minutes. I don't think it doesn't sound like anybody up here is comfortable opening the floodgates back to where it was and giving the opportunity to do whatever they want or to revisit the apartments that are so strongly opposed. My recommendation, I think, and if I can word this correctly, would be that we would recommend or that we would decline the request to zone AC, but that we would allow for the development of a PDD or to amend the PDD to allow for better control, where we can carefully watch and oversee what the intended use is for that property to protect everybody. That gives the property owner an opportunity to to generate a return on their investment, and it gives the adjacent homeowners protection. So
Got a motion?
I think.
I think so.
I'll second. I'll make sure you're finished, Charlie.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to amend the existing PDD. I do have and we'll go into discussion. Does it make sense to not defer, but hand it back to planning and postpone it to next month and let them present us what amending would involve, what recommended uses planning staff and the owner would consider?
Yeah,
Or do we-
I think that would be better than this. We
I
vote
feel-
on
So they're proposing AC.
That's it.
I mean,
But see,
we're-
this-
we're-
we don't know what the
obviously-
PD is.
Well, we either need to turn down the
Yeah.
request as it is today and then send it
Yes.
back.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my motion, was to decline.
That's what I second.
Mr. Moses, you agree with that?
We're going to send it back to planning, correct, for PDD to be looked at.
We still have a motion we have to
Right.
deal with.
Then you're deferring it.
Yeah, we defer
We're
it.
not I don't know that we can recommend
No.
what they should do, like
No.
what's before us.
Well, my thought was to have staff recommend to us, and then we vote it up or down. Does that fall within the,
I think we should send it back to the owners, but we
That
can't.
would be a defer.
Well,
that'd be a decline.
It-
So we're turning down we'd be turning down this,
Yeah.
but if we turn it down, can they reapply?
They could reapply for a different request, meaning
Yeah.
to amend the
Okay.
PDD. It wouldn't lock it up essentially for a year, like some cases do.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as they bring back a different request.
Right.
So do you want to amend your motion?
Well, the request is to rezone from PDD to AC, and I said to decline that rezone to AC, and then
second.
Okay,
But I still have a question.
okay, discussion.
Yeah. We still have the option to defer the request should additional information be needed.
Correct?
That's
So
what,
the issue that's before us, we're either voting that up or we're voting it down.
this request.
Right.
Right.
And we can do both, actually.
Yeah.
We
But-
can defer it or vote it down, and then they reapply with a different type of request.
So when we defer it, then that gives them the option to go back and have some discussion and bring it to us again, and then we can vote it up or we can vote it down.
Right. Or we can turn it down
Yeah.
today.
That's
Right.
requested.
As-
And if you vote no today, then we don't have any jurisdiction as to what they're going to do. We could just vote it up or down.
They have to come back to us for the PDD.
Right.
PDD.
Have to give the
Yeah.
city and come back with us.
They have to come back before.
They can't do anything unless they come back to us with a revised or amended PDD.
But my issue is,
Okay,
what's before us today, we're voting that up or we're voting that down. That's the issue that's before us today.
Right.
And since we have the option to defer it so that they can have more discussion and come back again, and at that point, we can vote it either up or down. Because if we vote it down today, then technically we have voted it down.
For changing it to AC.
yes, changing it to
Not
AC
affecting
only.
the PDD. They can come back with the whole other presentation for the PDD.
The way I see it though is everybody wins, the neighborhood wins, either way. I mean, I think either way protects the neighborhood, and whether we vote it down today or defer it,
But see, if we vote it down today, then they could come back, or they could not. If we defer it, then all of it's going to come back to us for a decision. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am. If it gets deferred today, then
well, so do we turn down the motion and then come back with a deferral, or do you want to amend your motion?
Well, I personally would like to defer it so that when they come back again,
Well, you've made that clear. I'm just saying, how do we deal with what's on the table right now? And that is,
well, we vote it either up or down.
I think we need to deal with the up or down vote so that the pleasure of the commission is known to the owner, so that the owner's clear. We don't like this proposal, or
Right.
or we do,
Right.
and then they can apply again. And I like the idea that they can apply at any time.
I mean, I feel like anything coming before us could be
My
deferred.
concern was, you said to vote it down, and then you was recommending that they come back.
no.
No. I mean,
Is that what you said?
They
that's
said they
their
can.
option
That's their-
to come back as a
It's their
PDD.
prerogative.
We would be able to listen to it as a PDD.
Okay,
But deferring it is the same thing though, right? They still be able to come back to let us.
Deferred
Just
deferred
make your
means
motion-
they can
make
still
your
have the
motion.
AC go
Right,
deeper,
make your
which is
motion.
Yeah, deferred says we got to deal with the AC again next month. I mean, I don't think anybody's in support of that, or I haven't heard anybody say they were.
Can you
Well, if
clarify
would
me?
make your motion again, because I wasn't clear on
Okay.
what you were saying.
Excuse me, before you do the motion, can you clarify for me again the difference in the AC and the PDD? What you're asking them to do? What would be the difference? What's the difference?
Okay. Do you want me to address that?
Yeah, please.
As far as the uses, or as far
Yes,
as,
sir.
okay, so activity center is a commercial zoning district. It allows a multitude of both residential and commercial uses.
Okay.
And with it comes a set of development standards.
Okay.
It's a fairly liberal zoning district. It allows anything from retail outlets to medical offices,
Okay.
things of that nature.
That's AC.
That's the AC.
Okay.
A planned development district is a district whereby you make your own guidelines, but planning commission and city council, it has to go through a public hearing process to approve that. You've probably, like down at Myrtle Beach, you've probably been to Market Commons. It's a very unique district, lots of high density development, lots of commercial mixed with retail, things of that area. That's an ideal planned development, whereby people they didn't go by the traditional zoning rules. They wrote their own zoning rules, but it still had to go through and get approved and thoroughly hashed out. This is an old planned development, and at the time this went through, in the ordinance it went through in, those guidelines were not spelled out at that time, or they may have existed at that time in a platform or something that existed at that time, but it didn't get recorded or written down in an ordinance that stood the test of time.
Okay.
So we, as a planning department, don't have any guidance for it.
Okay.
But
So,
all those people around that knew that PDD would have to come back before this commission, and they could say their piece. If it's zone AC, they can't say anything at all, zero. That's why I'm concerned.
And what is it right now, AC?
it's a split zone parcel. The front portion is activity center, and the rear portion is the old planned development. And they are proposing that it all get zoned activity center, so it'll have clear development guidelines. But the other mechanism to accomplish that would be to amend the PDD in the back, which it would then have to come back before this commission.
So the residents were also aware that this whole parcel could be.
That PDD, the resident I spoke to very well understood that the PDD would have to come back before this commission, and they would have a say in what went there.
No, I'm just saying that there was a chance that it could be AC, is what I'm saying.
No, I don't think they recognized that at all.
Nobody never knew that. Okay.
So let me clarify my motion because I did
That's all
ramble.
I need.
My motion is to deny the request.
Okay.
My recommendation is if the property owner wants to pursue something else, they get with city and they maybe look at the PDD, but I'm not comfortable with approving the request as an AC.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion.
I'm clear with
Okay.
what he said, I'm good.
Okay, I wasn't looking at you specifically.
No, no,
We can have a lot of
I'm
discussion.
just responding.
All right, I'll call for it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. Well, that was educational. Thanks, ma'am. All right, the next one is PC 2022-25. This is a request to rezone from NC 6.2 to CR. And Mr. Johnson, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. So this is 505 and 507 East Pine Street. It currently has 3 single-family detached homes on the properties. Land use of the adjacent properties along East Palmetto Street. You have Hope Health, which is zoned commercial general, and then everything else to the southeast west is residential. This particular area of Pine Street, this Pine Street corridor is currently identified by the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy as a catalytic project area, and its purpose is to revitalize existing homes, infill with newly constructed single-family housing to revitalize historic neighborhoods surrounding the city's downtown. And the commercial areas are envisioned to be along East Palmetto Street and buffered from residential to the south. Here's the zoning map. It's currently zoned NC 6.2. It is the request that it be rezoned to commercial reuse. The NC 6.2 was adopted along with the Unified Development Ordinance in 2018. It does permit residential uses such as single-family detached and duplexes, some commercial like home occupations and in-home childcare, but it currently does not permit professional services, which is what the applicant is proposing, something along the lines of mental health counseling. The future land use, commercial auto urban, which is described as a broad range of retail, restaurant, entertainment, office sites and buildings are normally relatively large scale. So here's some pictures. You have 505 East Pine Street, 507 East Pine Street, and then you can see 319 McFarland Street, all 3 single-family detached homes. So for the commercial reuse, it is intended to provide for low-impact commercial uses, small in scale, that are appropriate in certain residential settings, limited commercial uses along major corridors. And this parcel, these parcels do currently meet the minimum standards for commercial reuse if you're talking about an office or a service use. At this time, if the rezoning were to be granted, if the owner did decide to demolish the current buildings and construct new, CR setbacks would have to be met and all those design guidelines that come with it. But as of now, nothing has been requested for demolition or combining the 2 parcels for a larger commercial use. So that does conclude staff's report.
Mr. Johnson, could you share with the commissioners and myself what some of the uses in commercial reuse are?
So commercial reuse, you would have things like commercial retail, general professional medical office, which would include professional services, which would be mental health counseling, if that were chosen, a restaurant with no drive-through, and public assembly, like a church use.
Is this not predominantly Pine Street? Isn't it predominantly residential, single family?
It is, yes, sir. And that's the reason for targeted investment in this particular corridor for revitalization of a historic neighborhood close to the downtown area.
But revitalize it residential.
Right, single-family homes, existing and infill construction.
Because everything around there is 6.2.
Right. Hope Health to the north. You do have commercial general along East Palmetto Street, but predominantly along Pine
And
Street.
these three are asking for a more liberal
The commercial
in the
use.
middle of all that.
Can you have a color photo again? Go back.
Sure.
If you look.
Is that one
right-
good?
Yeah, that's, so to the left, the large structure to the left on Pine Street. What is that? Is that the,
Church.
What is the name of that?
is that the,
New Ebenezer, that's their recreation center.
so that goes all the way through now, right?
That is
The
correct.
church, right?
Right, right.
And across the street from the church is what?
That, yeah, the housing authority, which is a residential use, but it is owned PDD.
Which is commercial.
Right.
Right.
So you have campus, you have PDD, you have commercial
Go back
general.
to the color photo again.
Okay.
And then the structure to the north is Hope Health.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to put light medical office next to Hope Health, I don't see the.
I mean, that parking lot comes almost all the way
I
up
don't
to
see
the
the
back of
problem
that
with that.
property, right? I mean, if you look at one of the photos, the parking lot almost, is that a car at the very
Yeah.
upper left-hand corner there? I mean, it's already there, right? Parking lot is there.
It's pretty close, yes, sir.
I mean, if they don't pursue light medical office, Hope Health may just buy it and raise it because it's proximate to their location.
Right. If the zoning were changed,
Right.
they could do so.
But there's no more commercial anywhere around that off of,
I want to say, you know, y'all discussing all that, but that's part of my neighborhood down there.
my dad used to live on Jerry Street. My dad grew up on,
Well, I probably
Exactly.
know
What
you
about all
did.
the residents around there?
yeah, plenty of them.
Yeah, but we don't consider that
But
like
we
we just
got,
consider Second Loop Road.
Oh, no,
And the city is trying to, those houses and all, they're trying to redevelop those houses and all for single-family homes?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Yeah, but Pine and Coit.
Pine is in it.
This is not Pine.
This Pine he talking about.
I know. I said Pine and Coit is law offices, doctors'
No,
offices.
you in the wrong direction.
I understand that.
We talking about Pine Kemp.
I admit that. I'm just telling you that there's
This is crazy.
Pines. There are corridors of Pine Street that are light professional.
Yeah, across the track. Yeah. We talking about this side of the track, not that side of the track.
Yeah, that's
He's
completely
just giving that as an
different.
example. He knows
That's an example.
where this is.
I
He's
know
just
that.
saying that you can immerse some commercial professional office in with residential.
But from here back, going this
But
way, I think it's all residential.
we're discussing it, though. If it's a public hearing for,
I'm sorry?
is it a public hearing for this?
I will open it up. We're still asking.
Do you have a larger, I mean, it's mostly from where we are,
I don't have a
going
bigger
back to
one than that.
the park, it's all residential, correct?
Yes.
That is
All
correct.
residential.
Yeah, from starting from here, where the on back is residential.
Right.
And all of those streets in between. Also, yeah, sure. Yeah, that church is there. Yeah, that's a she right. There's another community building there, but
that's
everything
the
else
other
is
way, it's going toward
residential.
church, yeah.
You know, it's just like in this other area that's AC all around it. I mean, it's the same thing.
Any more questions of staff? All right, I'll open the public hearing portion of this. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this request? Please come forward and give us your name, please. Come to the podium, please. Good evening.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for allowing us to come to
Always.
present what we would like to do.
Absolutely.
I was like the people, I've seen some people that live on my street, I mean, not on my street, on that street for coming, because people ask, what do you want to do? So I said, well,
What
we
is your
just
name,
want
ma'am?
to do,
What
you
is
know,
your name,
something to
please?
help the community.
What is your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all
Dolores McKnight.
Dolores McKnight.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. McKnight. Go ahead.
I am a professional counselor. I'm a retired school teacher after 45 years. My husband worked for 40 years, and I have a great interest in children. My son told me, said, Mama, you and Daddy are a dying breed. People just don't have that type of interest anymore. Teachers just want to hurry up and get it done. But we have those two, well, it's 3 houses, but we have 2 houses that we would like to use for the children for the community, to help the community. May I read what I wrote? It's very quick.
Okay, it's quick, yes.
Okay. As a professional counsel, we have listened to the community concerns and needs. Our mission is to provide a pathway to reunification of families, supporting them by teaching the families to be self-sufficient, aiding the children by offering tutoring free, ensuring that those who need mental health support receive it, and empowering them with the skills to be productive members of society. Now, as you said, the property will be utilized for a needed community support center. A lot of times, children don't have a chance together with parents. You know, it's more commercial. So what we would like to do is have those facilities and provide certain services like parenting classes, basic life skill classes, that will help to build family bonds. And I want to teach independent life skills and support classes, tutoring, and the children won't have to pay. I want to write grants or whatever that will help the children of the families to be more productive.
Thank you, Ms. McKnight. Is there any questions from Ms. McKnight?
I have a question.
Yes.
Ms. Murray?
Is this what the planned uses for these 3 properties are?
Oh, yes. Well, one we might leave is our house on the McFarland. All right, somebody's living there. We don't want to uproot her. We just want to renovate and fix what needs to be renovated and fixed up. But it'll be used for a family resource. We aren't thinking about anything commercial like stores or anything like that. We just want to work with the family.
Are you going to keep the structures as they are
We'll fix them up.
and fix them up?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
yeah, rather than tear them down and build some
Yes.
kind of brick facility or something.
I love that blue house from the time I saw it, and I could envision this as families gathering together. If you'll notice, the property, we have Hope Health. It's adjacent, it's bordering it. And right across the street is the hospital. So even though we say it's residential, we do have, as you all discussed, we do have close vicinity of other commercial properties in the area.
Ms. McKnight, I appreciate you coming forward. I can see that you were a wonderful teacher. And thank you
I loved it.
Thank you for that service. That's fantastic. All right. Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else like to speak in favor? I bet this is Mr. McKnight. Good evening, sir. How are you?
My name is Richard A. McKnight, and that's my wife. And as she said, I taught school, I think all y'all know, at Hannah Pampico for 40 straight years.
Wow.
Down there. So that property I think would be a good thing. My wife likes children. Right now she have an office and she worked with what we call guidance and counseling people, and she liked that. And we just thought that in that area, right behind that, I know everybody was putting the emphasis on Pine Street, but they just put a new parking lot. You know, Hope Health. Hope Health is right there on behind it.
Yeah.
It's Hope Health, and then McLeod Hospital is right down there. And we just thought it would be a good area there for that area for commercial. And then right down on Pine Street, there's a church. And everything is right there. So, to me, I would like for y'all to consider it, because I think that for that area there, that I feel that it could help the community, and it could be an access to the community there, if y'all would consider it. And like I say, I'm McKnight. That's my wife, and I guess she'll be talking when we own the property, and that's right. So I want to thank y'all.
Mr. McKnight, thank you very
for
much.
listening.
I appreciate you coming forward for sure. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Is there anyone that'd like to speak against? Yes, sir. Come. Well, we'll get.
Ladies first.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
And your name?
My name is Margaret Johnson.
Ms. Johnson, thank you for coming forward.
I reside at 501 East Pine Street. I'm definitely against that because we already have a lot of foot traffic. I mean, I'm concerned about the kids also, but I'm also concerned about my well-being. Another place, whether the kids or what, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's the right idea. Hope Health parking lot is right at my back gate. I live on the corner of Pine and Jerry. See, I get all the foot traffic. And I don't think that'll be a good idea concerning, you know, for me, I'm surrounded by other buildings and stuff, and I just oppose that.
Could you pull that aerial up and have Ms. Johnson show us where your house is?
You can see.
I think that White House right there, man. I can't see that well, but I look this way. I can't even.
In right there, Jerry, right?
Would be this one right
Oh,
Yeah. You and Jared Street.
Pine and Jerry, the corner of Pine.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and Jared
This
Street.
would be 501.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's where reside at 501.
Right. All right.
I'm on the corner, and so I get plenty of traffic.
Yes, ma'am. Do the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Johnson? Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else, sir, you would like to come forward? This will be our last one. If that would. Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to say,
And your name, sir?
my name is Willie Shepherd, and my wife and I, we have a house that we purchased on last year at 500 Pine Street. Actually, I'm really from Pine Street. My mom's still on the 1000 block, 1000 East Pine Street. She's still on that street. And I'm really from East Florence. Now, let's think of a positive thing to do if you're going to do what you're going to do, per se. For us commercial or whatever, for the community, in that vicinity, on that street, it sounds good. It sounds good. It sounds good. But it's just as Sister Johnson was saying, that we got to look at our interests also. We're getting older. And we know that the world per se is getting wicked. Whether you believe it or not.
It's true.
We believe it.
It's getting wicked.
Right.
So, I mean, it'll be good to bring commercial buildings in or whatever, restaurants or whatever, which is a good thing. But then look at the elderly people interests also. We need to, I would say, more policemen. I mean, I hate to say it, but we have to do it. We gotta. Most of the people I raised up in that city, on that street, they died out or they done gone. Mm-hmm. We got a new species. We got new people, and young people, and you know, you look around. It sounds good. It sounds good if we do it in a positive way. We got to look and think of a positive thing and a positive way of doing it, and that's all I got to say on it.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this. Before I call for a motion, I have a question, and this may be a Mr. Dudley question. The requested zoning, is there anything other than CR or lesser zoning that they could still run that business?
There is not. CR was the least, I guess, the
Okay.
most benign district that could have support that use. We've been in this situation before with CR and some of the allowed uses, so it might be worth looking at the CR district and looking at those uses or the conditions that would be put in on some of the more intense uses that would be allowed there.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Moses?
Get back to my question again. The city are planning on revitalization we are violating that part of Pine Street, am I right? Those houses and all, that's its even plan right now, am I right?
That is
Those
correct.
houses and all, they're getting ready to redo them and all.
That
And
is
there will be
correct.
single-family homes. I'm on the single-family homes because that's what we need. We need single-family homes, ownership. I understand your passion, but if we put people ownership, then we not creating a problem there. That's the way I see it. And then I'm just on that single family. I just want that single family home because I think that would enhance that area if they would do the what the city is trying to do for Pine Street now. Just let the city do what they need to do to make single family homes on East Pine Street. In fact, I think the city is already building a house down there now, and they're getting ready to do more on Pine Street. And so, because I think they was trying to enhance the nurses and the doctors that was coming into McLeod to get them to move in that direction, and that's what the city was planning. Am I right or wrong?
That's correct. What we have here is two of our plans that are in conflict with one another. We have a comprehensive plan or a future land use that says that commercial is, appropriate here, and then we have our neighborhood revitalization plan,
Right.
which is the more current plan.
Right.
That identifies this area as a catalyst area, and it has become our focus for single-family redevelopment within East Florence.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moses.
This may be a question for the applicant, but is the applicant not the current owner of these properties?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, I am. So with the applicant owning these properties, it's unlikely that this specific property is targeted for redevelopment since the applicant is the owner and this is the intended use that they have. Thank you.
That's correct. The city does not own
Correct.
does not own these parcels.
And for all we know, the city's not under contract to purchase these properties.
I agree, Mr. Miller. I'm sorry. I think what you're trying to do is great. And Allie Brooks saved me when I was a young kid, and that's him and his wife. But Mr. Miller, we have to draw a line somewhere. We just can't keep marching in, closing residential. And I think I agree with him on that. It's a hard thing sometimes to draw that line. Where do you draw the line between commercial and residential? It sounds great, but I think what Mr. Moses is saying is correct. You have to you got to draw a line somewhere.
Hold on, Mr. McKnight.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. I admire the McKnights and what they're trying to do, and boy, you just had me smiling with how you described what you wanted to do, because what a worthwhile cause. But I do think as a body, we've got to respect the property, the zoning, the existing residents, and it's one of the fundamental principles that I try to live by with this, serving on this body, is to protect the existing property owners. And there is a bar that has to be met in order to get me to agree to change a zone. There's just got to be a reason for doing it. And your reason is extremely noble, and I admire you for what you want to do. But it's just, we've got these folks that live next door, and they bought that property. I don't think we can change the zone on a piece of property right beside them. I can't be in favor of that. So I'd like to make a motion unless.
Okay, Ms. McKnight, I'm sorry, the public hearing portion is closed, so you will not be able to make any more comments, but thank you. All right, I have a motion. Would you say that motion one more time?
Yeah, motion to decline.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay. The ayes have it. All right, the next item is PC 2022-26. Ms. Lane.
All right. This one should be a little bit simpler. This is a request to annex a single-family property on Shenandoah Lane and to zone it to the same zoning as is around it, the NC 6.1. You did approve an annexation of several parcels along there in the last several years as well. And again, this is just a single-family house, but they just want to annex so they can get city services. So it's in keeping with the future land use recommendation, and here's a picture of the house, and it's surrounded by similar houses, and so that concludes staff's report.
How sweet it is. All right, I'm going to open and close the public hearing portion of this and call for a motion.
So move.
Got a motion, do I have a second? I got a second.
I'm sorry, you guys are so quick. Who made that motion?
Mr. Moses made the first, and I think Ms. Hines made the second. No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay. Ayes have it. Sweet. PC 2022-27. Ms. Lane.
All right, this is a request to annex two parcels adjacent to the Naturally Outdoors parcel. The Naturally Outdoors parcel is has contiguity with city limits through a 10-foot strip along the parcel that fronts on West Palmetto Street. So they just want to finish annexing the remainder of that parcel in, and they want to include, it's kind of a landlocked parcel right along the creek there as well. But both parcels are owned by the Naturally Outdoors people. Their goal for these parcels is to do some more commercial development on the one that fronts West Palmetto, and the one in the back, they want that zoned OSR so that they'd like eventually to maybe put a boat launch onto the creek from there. So they would only use that for passive recreational uses, and then be able to develop the front. So they want, and that's in keeping with the future land use map recommendation, which is the commercial auto urban for the front parcel and the parks and open space for the parcel along the creek. And these are some photos of it. Right now they use it as the parking lot for the Bean Bar, and there's a new restaurant going in there. And again, because it would be zoned AC, which is the same that the rest of the little complex there is, it'd be a similar commercial use for it. So that concludes staff's report.
Great. Any questions? Staff? All right, I'll open and close the public hearing and call for a motion.
So move.
We got a motion?
Second.
I got a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay. Ayes have it. Now, this is what I'm talking about.
I'm telling you.
PC 2022-28.
And these two cases go together. One is a request for an annexation, and then the second is just the subdivision into lots of that particular parcel. But I'll start with the annexation. It is and it turns out it's a portion of this parcel along Clark Branch Road at Hoffmeyer Road. There is a house at the front along Hoffmeyer Road, and that is not included. And I've added a map here showing that distinction. They're just going to break off the part that's along Clark Branch Road. They want to zone it the NC 6.1, which is the part across the street, which if you're familiar with the area, is Kenswood subdivision. These small lots with the kind of cottage style housing. They just want to build more of the same. And here's the site plan, the area to be annexed. It does take off the part of the house, and then the remainder of that lot they want to subdivide into 12 single-family parcels. And so those all meet the, and this is going to the sketch plan section, but those all do meet the dimensional requirements for NC 6.1 for width and area. But it's just because there were more than 4 lots that it has to get sketch plan review. So that's the area to be annexed. It's vacant right now. It's a narrow strip of land, but they want to build houses to kind of match what's across the street. So that concludes staff's report for the annexation request.
And these are single family owned, right?
Correct.
Okay.
They'll be exactly the same as the ones on Gloria Court across the street.
All right. Any questions of staff? I'll open and close the public hearing and call for a motion. We Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay. Ayes have it. PC 2022-29. Poor Miss Elaine, y'all wearing her out tonight.
Again, this is that same parcel, and this is just the subdivision of that parcel into the 12 lots. And they do, water and sewer is available, and they, as I said, they just match exactly in character across the lots across the street.
All right, as commissioners, we know our limitations on sketch plan approvals. Any questions of staff?
I have a question. The one on the odd-shaped lot, that meets the requirements?
It does. It just has to have 60-foot a minimum frontage along the front street, and then a minimum 6,000 square foot area, which it does have.
What setbacks are going to be on that particular lot?
The setbacks are only 5 feet on the sides, and 20 feet in the front, and 20 feet in the rear.
Even facing on that road?
Yes, sir. And it'll be facing onto Clark Branch Road. So the house will be at the front part of that pie-shaped lot.
So 5 foot setback off of that main corridor, that's where Lucy T comes through and all that?
I think it's 10 feet off that side. So they will have to position the house to meet those setbacks, but it is possible.
All right. Good catch. I didn't really think about the odd shape, but
They'll have a weird backyard.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, that road is heavy traffic.
It is.
And just wondering.
yeah, thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion.
Move we approve.
I've got a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay. Ayes have it. Mr. Moses. Okay, Mr. Moses. Thank you, sir. All right.
We have nothing else.
Trust me, you better be glad.